Hello everyone. In this video we are going to see about the shear test and I'm going to share some basics about shear test. So let's get into the video. A shear test is a mechanical procedure that determines a material resistance to force acting parallel to its surface causing internal sliding failure. So which is nothing but it is explaining about the forces acting parallelly on the material and how long the material resists its capability to internal failure. Okay. Mm, Now we are going to see about the purpose of the shear test to determine the shear strength of the materials. So the mechanical mechanism behind the shear test is explaining about applies opposing forces parallel to the material surface promoting a sliding failure. So as I said already, the forces are acting parallel to the material and how long the material resists the internal failure sliding. So here the shear testing machine is shown with V notch based specimen. So it is just shown for example. And coming to shear test, it is mainly used to determine the shear strength of materials. It is important in components like rivets, bolts, pins, shafts, weld joints. So we all know about shafts, weld joints, bolts and pins, but rivets is little bit new for us. A rivet is nothing but it is a kind of permanent fasteners used to join the metals. Fasteners is the materials or metallic pins used to join the two different materials either permanently or temporarily. So rivets is one kind of permanent fasteners. So shear test is used a lot in most of the important components like were showcased here. So coming to shear stress, it is a material subjected under a load. We have the resistance parallel to the cross sectional area. Nothing but as I said already, the force is acting parallel to the cross sectional area. So the shear stress is similar to normal stress. In normal stress, the resistance is perpendicular to cross sectional area. Here we know it. So but in shear stress, the resistance is parallel to cross sectional area. So the shear stress is denoted by tau. Tau is equal to force by area. Here tau represents shear stress and force represents the applied force and A represents the area resisting shear. So coming to the types of the shear, so not it is a type of shear, but it can be classified into two different ways like single shear and double shear. Coming to single shear, if there is only one cross section which resists the failure, the material is said to be in single shear. So look at the diagram. So in this diagram, at a full specimen is placed in it when the force is applied, which is denoted as P. So here the specimen breaks at one single point. This denotes the single shear, where shear strength can be represented by P by A. And double shear, if two areas resist the failure, then the material is said to be in double shear. Here the component is break into three parts where the two cross-sectional areas tend to be failure. So this expressing about the shear strength at two different cross-sectional areas. So shear strength can be denoted by P by 2A. So we are coming for some more little basics of shear test, like need for shear test. Why should we use a shear test? So shear test can be used to determine maximum shear strength and to check the material performance in bolts and fasteners. So as I already said, fasteners is the material to join the two different metals. So here we can able to check the performance of the materials used in bolts and fasteners and to study failure behavior under transverse loading. Transverse loading is nothing but the load is applied in a perpendicular direction, like it is acting in a 90-degree or somewhere. So this is used to study the failure of behavior at transverse loading. So, and it is used in structural and mechanical designs. So these are the needs of shear test. And coming to shear testing machine. So shear testing machine is going to be tested in UTM. So UTM is nothing but universal testing machine. I think we all know about it generally. So I'm skipping that. Explaining about it, I will skip it. So procedure here, coming for the procedure to shear test. So measure specimen dimensions. So we have to measure the dimensions of the specimen at first and fix specimen in shear fixture to do further procedures and apply load gradually. So we should apply the load gradually to record the shear strength. So record maximum load at failure. So we should record the maximum load at which the failure causes at the shear material. And finally, we are going to calculate the shear strength using formula, which is this. For the shear strength can be calculated by tau is equal to P by A, and some further calculations we can able to calculate the shear strength. So coming to shear failure. Failure occurs when applied stress exceeds shear strength. So failure occurs when the load limits exceeds the shear strength. The failure may occur. The fracture surface is usually flat. So ductile materials show slight deformation. The ductile materials have more toughness, so it may shows some slight deformations. And brittle materials have low toughness, so it may fail suddenly. And coming to the applications of shear test, design of bolts and rivets. So we have already seen about bolts and rivets, and now we are coming to structural joints, as fasteners includes the structural joints, and aircraft and automobile components, and metal forming processes. We all use this shear test in various kinds and perspectives. And coming to advantages, it is simple and quick method to test determine the shear strength of the material and gives direct shear strength. So maybe stress distribution may not be uniform. So maybe the stress distribution in the specimen is not uniform under the shear test. Not suitable for all materials. Alignment errors may occur. Okay, this is the schematic diagram that shows the shear stress and shear stress of the component. And look at here. So in this point, the shear stress is parallel to the cross sectional area, which is shown in this diagram. Okay. Now coming to, this is the rivets and bolts, which is used as fasteners to join the materials. So now coming to different types of shear test. So direct shear test, force applied directly across shear plane. So we consider a plane which is known as shear plane. Shear plane is nothing but where the shear stress is present in that plane is known as shear plane. So force is applied directly on the shear plane is known as direct shear test. Mostly used in soil mechanics to determine the strength of the soil or shear strength of the soil. So it is a very simple setup to check out the shear test. And coming to double shear test. So double shear test means a specimen is sheared at two planes. So here two planes are involved, which is denoted as double shear. So the shear is present at two planes. Okay, shear stress is present at two planes. Common for rivets and bolts. So rivets and bolts can be come under this double shear test. And shear strength is higher compared to single shear. So here the shear strength is more effective and higher than single shear. So because it consists of two sheared planes. And coming to punch shear test, used for sheet metals. It is used for sheet metals. So flat sheets, thin sheets used as a sheet metal. So where it is very effective, punch shear test. Punch presses the material until failure. So punch presses the material until failure. So we may able to calculate the shear strength by this punch pressing method, and used to calculate shear strength of thin sheets. So the specimen or some kind of materials can be calculated under can be determined under various methods like direct and double, but only for thin sheets the punch shear test is a very good one. And coming to a last type of shear test, which is torsion shear test. Shear produced by twisting, like we can able to twist the material, so the at that time the shear can be produced on the same material, so that is known as torsion shear test, and done using torsion testing machine. It can be used by torsion testing machine. We can able to calculate the torsion strength of the material in that, so we can able to calculate same torsion shear test in the same machine also. So used for shafts and circular rods. So finally, these are the diagrams for four different types of shear test, which consist of direct, double, punch and torsion. So in direct we have the shear force is parallel to it, and we have a lot pin in double shear test. So we have same way we have the support blocks in a double shear test. In punch shear test we have sheet metals, like thin, very thin sheet metals can be able to calculate it here. So the sheet metals are only effect can be in for thin sheet metals. We can able to calculate the shear strength very effectively in this method. Coming to final one, the torsion shear test. So the torsion shear test consists of a torsion meter or scale, where the shear test can also be calculated in the torsion testing machine. So these are the different types of shear test. Thank you.